Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there and welcome. This is the show where we explore topics that help you create your lifestyle to live full and work fun. I'm Gayla Scrivener, joined here by my co-host, Fran Groesbeck. Hi, Fran.
Hey, Gayla.
Today, we are going to dive right into content library and talk all things about content because we are really into content marketing. And some of our listeners may have heard this, but not necessarily know exactly what this means. I'm going to throw this question at you. What's your definition of content?
That's a great question. I was just thinking that content marketing and word content has been thrown around for a long time now. And it's a very vague word that sounds like you know what it is. And in all honesty, it could be a little different to each person. You probably like getting your taxes done, ask 10 different people and get 10 different results. Um, so with content for me, it has always meant the information and images that help tell your story and convey your message of who you are, why you're there, and what you do. So it's really just two main buckets for me, and that's images and then words. And that can be a little different for each person, how they put together, but you can't have, and let's use websites or social media or even newsletters, some of the cornerstones of good marketing plan. You can't have any of those without both good images and good written information. So those are the two big overarching buckets to me. Then within each one, they could break down a little bit. So in images, it could include logos. It could include actual images of people, places, or things tied to the actual business. It could be stock photography that alludes to the key topics that you want to talk about. On the information side, that's where, in the written word side, that's where it's not just the written words of what you want to share about who you are and what you are, but there also is a plan in there too. So the information side there's some structure in there too, but the information are the words, the messages, who you are. Do you have your mission, vision, and values written out? Do you know your purpose, promise, and principles, whichever way you look at it, so that you can connect it to the images? We talk about in social buckets. What are your buckets? Do you have the content for those buckets? What do you want to talk about in those buckets? If you have events that happen every month, what are you saying about them? What are you promoting each month? So there's the words and the images to me for content.
I wanted to add to that with the words piece. It's that authority piece as well. Not only sharing your purpose, your mission, and who you are, but also the authority piece of whether you're teaching someone something or just showing. And I think that that can be within product-based or service-based. And you work a lot with product-based businesses. I, on the other hand, work with a lot of service-based business. So the authority piece in service-based business is sharing what you know and sharing to help the listener, the reader, the watcher, video, podcast, or blog, to share your knowledge, to position yourself with that authority so that they can get further in their journey. For product-based business, there's a lot of, you work with some cookware type of products, and having a cooking show using those products, that is content, teaching someone how to prepare a meal, even though and using the products and how to use certain types of pots and pans or bakeware or whatever. And I know of one of my dear friends, one of her products is stencils, and a great content for her is not only the imagery of the end product of the stencils, but the how to get a good crisp stencil going and not bleed over, and the just a that how to type of stuff. So I just wanted to interject content. And when you're first starting out, it seems a little bit overwhelming, right? Because it's like content. I don't even know what to do. And today we'd like to share, how do you build that content library? And when you get started on building that content library, then years later, you're going to be in the position of, I have a lot of content. What do I want to sift through to move forward? Or I believe that we all evolve in our businesses, especially the small businesses. We evolve. So it's a natural thing to do, and it's a great thing to do, because when you evolve, you figure out what you really want to do so that your work continues to be fun, right? And that you can live a full life. So, what did you do when you first started out to build a content library? I mean, how did you save things? What's your style of saving the words and the images?
Love that question because the word library sounds really massive. It sounds like this big, cumbersome, complex process. It's a folder. For me, it's a folder. And in that folder, there's two other folders, and there's pictures and there's content. Now, I'm evolving right now where we may start grouping that different, and I have a platform where I'm putting the two together as I then plan before I get to a planner, but let's not overwhelm the listener there. Start really simple. We talked about a style guide in another podcast. I highly recommend people listening to that because a style guide does impact your content library. And in the pictures folder are pictures I have approved as ones that are okay to represent my company. They represent the tone, the voice, the feel. They have the right message. Images, visuals are still messages, right? So we then have that broken out by our social media buckets, which is another thing we've talked about before. So within the pictures folder, there's an about us or company folder. Then there's services, things that we like, images that relate to the services. If we have, and then there's a one for the knowledge sharing. So kind of the authority piece, where are images. You can have that all as one big folder and then use naming conventions to separate which ones are used where. Or I just find it easier to have those subfolders. For content, it's a little different. I love Google Docs. I love Google Docs. It's easy to use. Since I am a Google business user, it's easy to access. We have shared documents across my team. I write something and they know, okay, it's ready to go. I am transitioning that into another platform, which you have introduced me to, which is Notion. So now I can give more information of where this document falls in the plan of what we're using it for. But the great thing too, whether it be Google Docs or Notion or another platform, you can then link or reference which picture you want with that content. What you see is working together, or maybe that's someone else in your team. Maybe somebody's writing the information and that's a Google Doc. You could still save that in a folder. You could use Word. You can use a lot of any kind of platform. I do recommend when you first start out writing content to use something that has an editor in it, because while today we have reached a point where more colloquial talk is fun on social, it is really important to still have proper grammar, spelling, punctuation. It is still something that a good majority of your readers pay attention to. So, and see, and they can be reticular activator breaks. So if someone sees improper fonts, formats, spelling, it can be a break that disconnects your target audience. And everything we're doing here is for connection. Content library feeds the connection, right? So it's part of telling your stories. So you want to make sure that both the words and the images are consistent with what you want to put out there as who you are and what makes you special and unique in your market.
When I first started, Dropbox was my thing. And I used Microsoft products, Word, all of that for drafts of articles. And I would put those in folders. And then we had a graphics folder. So similarly, we did that. But I think that the very, very first thing that you must do to build your content library is to commit to publish. Nobody's going to ever see anything that you do unless you publish. Commit to publish on a consistent basis and start with that authority piece. That authority piece can the simplest thing, and we've talked about this in a past episode, but a blog is the less tech way of doing that. But you may be a talker and you want to do a podcast. Well, then there's a different level of complexity in producing a podcast. And maybe you want to start your YouTube channel. All those three ways, whether it's a blog, a podcast, or a video, it all starts with words, right? So having that commitment to publish and publish on a consistent basis. And I challenge you, if you're not publishing right now an authority piece, that the minimum that you publish is once a month. That's only 12 pieces in a whole year. And you could commit to that and think about the writing piece or the words. You could cram it all in once in 1 month and do all of them and then trickle them out. Or, 12 does not seem like that much. And at a minimum, publishing once a month. And I have had some pushback a little bit on some clients that want to just only do social media and not worry about this authority piece on their website or in that. Now, granted, social media is a piece of content. It's micro content, and it's a piece of that. Now, I do not save every piece of micro content, in a folder, in a Google Doc, in Dropbox, or anything like that. But all of these pieces of content and the images that go with the social post, that is a piece of the authority piece that we can, publish each time. And so really getting the content library going, first commit to publish. And, funny enough, I had two clients way early on in Scrivener Solutions that I ended up doing a paper-based, it was direct mail newsletter, and that it was right for them. Well, I started doing that for Scrivener Solutions as a practice, because anything that I do with marketing, because I head up a marketing team, we experiment with a lot of things. And so I did a direct mail newsletter for a period of time, for a couple of years, in fact. And it's not a bad way to go. But every article in there was a piece of content that we saved in a fashion in my Dropbox. And we repurposed that on the website. For many of those things, we repurposed the main article, which was the authority piece, on the website in the form of a blog. And then we chunked it down even further, and that message turned into micro content on social media. So when you break it down and commit to, I'm going to publish only once a month, you are starting your content library. I've been doing this podcast now for many years. In my podcast bucket, it's a content library. And my podcast bucket for the library is quite big. I save even some clips. I save the original audio and video because I might be able to use it at a later time. which I do periodically, and it serves as inspiration for future things, or I can repurpose it, right? So I would not have even fathomed that 5 years ago, right? It just seemed like such a big mountain to climb. But now creating content on a regular basis has given me this vast library, and digital space is cheap.
Yep.
I come from a medical background, and we used to have rooms of file cabinets, rooms and rooms of file cabinets and stuff. And when we digitized and everything was online, all that space, but all also the space, the physical space to store that was expensive. I mean, if you think of saving your data on little backup drives that can save a terabyte backup drive is so cheap and it keeps coming down each year. So I'm in the philosophy of save it. Save your rough drafts, save the original audio or the original video, and then you have the edited version. Save all of that in a structure that makes sense to you because you may repurpose. And it also gives inspiration. You've done it a while, and maybe your buckets, your folders are full. If you have a library. I don't know about you, Fran, but I have gone back on some of my old library pieces and I'm like, nope, this doesn't represent me anymore. This, and but I also look back at some of the images and it's like, man, that looks really hokey. I would never fathom doing that now. But it gives you the reference of look how far I've come or evolved in my messaging and my digital appearance. So,
What you've touched on, though, is the whole purpose of a content library. One, in all things we do in our businesses, having some processes and plans, while up front takes a little time and a little investment to get them going, in the long run saves a lot of time and money. So having that content library, and start simple. It sounds like we both have a lot of stuff in our content libraries. It didn't start that way. We had a handful of pictures and a handful of words, and whether it be a Google Doc or something else, do the same thing. The reason you do a content library is because most likely, if you're like us, you have some pictures on your phone, you have some pictures over here in another folder. You might have both a business computer and a personal computer. You might have pictures on each one. You might have some in Google Cloud Drives or Apple Picture Drives or wherever, Dropbox, they might be. So having this one place where you go to each month where it is really important. And then tying back to what you just said, you go through it every quarter, or maybe the next time you go to do the monthly plan, you're like, holy cow, look at those pictures. No, I don't want to use those pictures anymore. Or you might find pictures, oh, I forgot I had that. Oh my gosh, I want to talk about that. That's relevant now. I never posted that a few months ago or a few years back because it really wasn't relevant. Now it is. So you can also, to your point of you can see where you've evolved from, but you can also find hidden treasures in your content library because you might be stumped to post something and see something that you remember you wrote wasn't timely at the time, but now is, or really is connected to the message you're focusing on. So content library is you, and as with all things we talk about, Gayla, keep it simple to start. The number one goal is to make sure that you don't have pictures and words all over the place. Get it centralized. Get it centralized in one folder. Even if you're the only person doing it, it will save you time when you go to do your commitment to that content, whether it be the social, the newsletter, the blog, whatever it may be. It's all in that one place. If you're sharing with a team, though, now everybody's going to go to the same resource. Everybody can share their pictures. They can add the content. If you do want to approve pictures, I did have this with a client where they did have a shared folder and people were taking pictures on their phones, but because people had different phones, the quality of the images coming into the folder varied. And we do need to talk about quality of images here in a content library. So she did have a little process where there was a folder in the content library for them to put shared images and then she would move them to a folder. And she never just didn't use a picture. She'd go back to that person, and go, I love this shot, or that was a good idea, but it came through pixelated. Or so you need to change the resolution and way you send it, or something like that. So I that have again, that's part of her process. And I loved that she had this like we also have we have a folder for a particular topic where as we create the images right in that folder, it has posted online and unscheduled. So we know we're going to start in the unscheduled folder to look for new images because we don't want to repeat some of the images. So you can have things there. But this idea of a content library is a way to have that centralized way. It is such a great snapshot of what you're saying, to take a look back where you've been, where you're going. Is that messaging still the same? And if you find that you're seeing, there's something here, I gotta take a look at it. That could be a time to go back to your strategy and planning and say, is it time to kind of look at a new, mission? What are my new goals? And how do I then reflect the content in that and sharing my voice in what I'm doing?
I love that. And it sparked that in our hurried society that we have, we've got to always be getting things done and the do. Our content library can get messy over time because, you're taking pictures on your phone. You forget to put it over here. That is normal. So you're going to have some messiness to it. And you've inspired me because I know that I do things differently than I did years ago. And you've inspired me just with what you said to look at that even deeper and organize it in a different way. And there's so many ways because I work with a team and they need access to what I approve, right? And they need access to that, and there's different processes for different folks. And I think that you'll find your way, but also know that it's okay to be messy, but take a little bit of time to plop things in the right folders because in the long term it's going to be easier. Now I use for instead of Google Docs Notion now, but I used to use Microsoft Word for blog posts and show notes and things like that. But how I set it up in Notion, it's kind of like an index as well, so that I can do some searchable stuff with that. So I've created these docs as a database, which in Dropbox, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and those folders, Google Drive, you can do similar things. So it's the tool that you're most comfortable with. Don't let the start stop you. You just build your library with committing. Now, as you come into looking into your library and you've been doing it a while, you might have a lot of things, and then you might transition. Like right now, I'm transitioning into like reorganizing and my blog, and that might be a topic for another time. What do you think on, hey, I've had this content library, but it's kind of messy. How do I organize my website a little bit better?
I think it's a great topic. I think it's a
Yeah.
great topic. And just the reference to taking the time to look back at where your content is, what does it say about you, and is it still relevant to where you are, is really important.
Well, I would love to hear from our listeners. How about you, Fran? I would love to know, first, do you publish on a regular basis? If not, I challenge you to publish once a month an authority piece, not just social media. You can share that micro, but share your authority piece. And how do you file things? What tools do you like? We like Google Docs. We've used Dropbox. We've used Microsoft. Right now, Fran and I are both utilizing Notion for a lot of our content ideas and worksheets and where we house our words for our library. I use Canva for imagery library and utilizing folders within the Canva. Now I have a paid version, so I don't know. I know that Canva has a great free version, right? But I don't remember what those resources are. But having the folders, utilizing folders within Canva has been a lifesaver. Like picking out stock images that are approved and putting them in that client or in my folder has been great. So I've kind of shifted, and then we upload approved selfies of me in Canva, and we're transitioning into that. So that's an idea. So there's so many ideas. So I would love to hear from you, uh, and just hop over to Facebook. We're over in Facebook in the Live Full Work Fun group, and drop your comments. What's your biggest takeaway in today's show? Well, until next time, I wish everyone a fantastic week, and you should live full and work fun. Bye-bye, everybody. This episode has been brought to you by Scrivener Social, the easy-to-use social scheduling platform built for the busy solopreneur. You deserve a system that makes posting to your social media faster and more efficient. Go to scrivenersocial.com and subscribe today.